Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast, with your industry veteran hosts, Michael Sandoval and Chris Detzel. This podcast starts now. My name is Michael Sandoval, and welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers.
And I'm Chris Detzel.
Well, hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Well, you know, it's Christmas time, and
Yeah.
everybody seems to be in a good mood. Where I work, we had, because of COVID, we did an unprecedented thing, kind of approved by the board to give everyone, I hate to say the word bonus, but, geez, thanks for working, being an essential worker through the COVID crisis. So everybody's in a very happy mood. So it's very nice. But it's good. How about yourself, sir?
I'm good. Really good. Life is treating me well. The Imperva community has been doing well. It's at the end of the year, and I'm excited.
Well, oddly enough, because you said Imperva.
Yep.
I know. Would you like to share some of your news that you have?
Yeah. So.
Not to bury the lead, as they say.
Yeah. I'm leaving Imperva and going to a company called Reltio. My last day at Imperva will be December 18th, so I'm certainly excited. I was very happy with what we built at Imperva, but an opportunity arose to where Reltio and their team wanted me to come and build their community from scratch.
What? Well, first of all, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's kind of fun. As I mentioned before, I just really enjoy chit-chatting and talking about all things community and really driving that customer experience higher. And, it's always, for me personally, the fun part of a community is the beginning. That
it is fun.
It's, just getting it started, getting people excited about it, building it. And there's no offense to those who really enjoy nurturing a community over time. It requires some different skills and the like. But evangelizing, getting it up and going is really the fun part. So I'm sure there are many out there who envy that task that you have, and I'm sure you'll do great, as you always do. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. And thank you. That's always, it's actually what I feel like I'm really good at is, my wife's always told me, look, if it wasn't challenging and if it wasn't something that you had to go kind of build, then you would be really bored, And so I have not had the opportunity to just go into a company and just, nurture a community and just build upon what's already there. I've always, and as you know, like even at Rexel, you guys were there already, but still there was a lot of building to do from ground up, all the way into Imperva, to where I started everything from ground up.
It's interesting. Maybe after some time at, and you'll have to help me. Was it Rialto? I want to say Rialto.
Reltio. R-E-L-T-I-O.
Reltio. Okay, Reltio.
Yeah.
Okay. Say it three times. And I'm sure what will be very interesting is how one characterizes each of those experiences, because I think we've mentioned this before. Even though I would say this even to my current position now, knowing what to do, I can do that on a whiteboard in a day.
Yeah.
Doing it and then getting everybody on board takes the career, right? That's the hard part. And I think I mentioned to you one time, I said, you need someone with some very deep skills around evangelization and getting people activated, because I could teach you how to do the whiteboard. I can't teach the whole understanding and the grit and the enthusiasm to do it, right? And it's one of your talents. I've mentioned that to you before, right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. And because you told me that, what's funny about that, I remember having those conversations at Rexel. You were like, Chris, your talent really is this. You get excited about it, you get people pumped, and then you actually get people to do a bunch of stuff. And I took that to heart. And when I and I did a lot of that at Rexel, but I even kind of leveled up 2 times or 3 times when I went to Imperva. I said, you know what? I am the expert I'm the fucking guy that's going to make this shit happen, and if they
Exactly.
come to me, I know my stuff. I didn't know everything, but sometimes you act as if, and then you kind of go find the answers later. But
I
you
will
learn a
be
lot.
right back.
I'll be right back. Hey, Michael, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good.
Yeah, good thing I'm having a podcast this week, and I'll tell you later.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I'll come to you. Hey, I got a thing that we should talk about, right?
Yeah, gotta
Um,
let's talk
so,
about that for a moment.
um, but yeah, no, I think that I really did take that to heart, and I thought, you know, somebody else told me one time, sometimes when you go through an interview process, I remember, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And then somebody told me one time, or I was listening to a podcast, and he goes, you know what?
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but like my favorite one is I just care too much.
I care too much is my weakness. Um, but
Sorry, you're saying.
no, they ask you those kind of questions, and
Yeah,
then
of course.
I was kind of listening to somebody, and they go, you know what? The worst interview question is, what's your strengths and weaknesses?
It is.
And they go, when you look at weaknesses, I would say something like, I don't really focus too much on my weaknesses. I actually focus on the strengths, and I would hope my manager understands what my strengths are, and that's why they hired me. And so I took that to heart, right? And I was like, I have a lot of weaknesses, but I don't really focus on those things. I'm not saying you don't get better at certain things from a weakness standpoint. If I'm not really good at politics, well, you better fucking get somewhat good at politics, or at least to where you can manage the
It's
politics,
really
because that's just going
yeah.
to happen in business. You know what I mean? Um, I'm not that good at politics and business. Well, you know, you have to be maybe not good, but you have to at least just kind of go with the flow and understand where they're coming from, and have some kind of, because
Develop
they
some
have
competency.
priorities. Business people have, parts of the business have their own priorities, and their priorities are not yours. And so, a lot of kindness from my
No,
end has to
no,
happen, to get them to do some
yeah,
shit. I mean, that's just the way it
yeah.
is.
We try to align our own to the everything, but yeah, no, it's a that is
Yeah.
true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I think that, the way this position came about was, the right way, and it's kind of the first for me, but I'm certainly excited.
Well, tell us a little bit. So, it's funny when you said Rexel because I think that's where I was going to go a little bit, which is each of these experiences, even though, as mentioned, we can put on the whiteboard what has to happen, stage one, stage two, stage three framework, but like you know, like what's it called? Like a snowflake. Everyone is different, right?
That's right.
And Rexel's challenge was core disbelief, right? So in that case, it was about changing someone's belief, which doesn't happen overnight. So that's a big kind of thing, right? So the only way you can do is prove it with data and give it time. I think in the second, with Imperva, you actually had senior managers when you first started who
Yeah.
knew that this was part of the support vector that needed to
Yeah.
happen to expand their market,
Yeah.
and that kind of gave you some coattails to kind of get going,
That's
and
true.
that got you up and going. I know that there was some changes, and in those changes of new people, it's amazing how quickly the DNA of the company also changes, right?
Hmm.
And now you're kind of entering in my again. You have this is where I wanted to kind of have you expand a bit.
Yeah.
Is now you're entering an organization where I think there are some similarities to Imperva, and
Yeah.
you have senior managers who are looking to drive it, but you are, I think, in a more mature industry where community is kind of it's not just a nice to have. It's kind of the way you survive is through this element. Uh,
Well,
what's
I
your
don't know
thought?
that. I don't know that for sure, actually. So if you go to the competitors, let's back up. Um, when you look at Imperva, for example, the competitors of Imperva, like
Mm,
um,
F5 and the like.
F5 and others,
Mm,
they've had communities, online communities, for 10 years plus, 7 years
mm,
plus, or whatever, right? So their communities have been around for a long time. Imperva is a 20-year-old company that never had a community. And they were an on-prem, which you can imagine on-prem, you don't really need online community, because once it's in your you know uh, environment, that stuff's hard to pull out, right? So But then they bought some SaaS companies and really started thinking about not just the support model, but renewals and self-help and those
Mm,
kinds of things, right? And so uh, the leadership ran at that time by Chris Hyland. He was the CEO, and some of his other leaders at that time was Jen Levette and a couple other people knew that community could it's a digital channel for them, right? And they knew that
right.
going more spending more in digital transformation and digital in general was important. So community was a part of that shift. So it wasn't the whole shift. So they understood that from the beginning. Now you're right. A year later, Chris left the company, and then so did all of his other reports. And then they hired somebody else in January of this year, um, and she brought in all of her reports. And so the things I had to do was different because
As leaders
luckily I
do. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's normal,
Yeah.
but the things luckily I already had kind of the bottoms up, like people that were excited about community and everything else that entire year before, but I didn't have the top down. Does that make sense? So
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah. Agreed.
that
Yeah.
was actually that it was interesting because I had to really start pushing in that way, and that's a whole conversation probably on its own. Now, you mentioned that now I have kind of the same, somewhat similar when I go to Reltio. Well,
Yeah.
interesting enough, Chris Hyland, he is the CEO of Reltio, and he's actually, recruited me to the organization. And so I will be reporting directly into his senior leader that runs customer success, which all these things are under. This guy, his name is Ahmed, and all these things that are under him are support and customer success management and training and some other things, right? So all these things report into him, and now including community. He seemed very
Yeah.
excited because they were thinking about starting the community, last year, but just didn't get it off the ground. Um, Look, it's an 8-year-old company, so they're not that old. So, actually, when you think about it, you don't just start a community in the first year or two anyways. You've got to build the product. So they've done that, and they
No, we
believe
talked
that
about. Yeah.
community is a could be a big part of that. Um, so yeah, I think I do have senior leadership on board, and mainly, when a CEO is interested in building that community and recruit you, I think that there's some buy-in there. Does it make sense? Um,
No, it totally
so
makes sense. So, yeah, no, what I'm looking. Well, let me just flip it around as a question and say, what do you think your clearly you haven't even had first date yet, but
no.
I'm sure in your interviews you had to do some research. Do you know what you think are the first challenges that you see are going to be different from where you are today?
Um, well, I think the challenges any company like this is, I'm not an expert in the products and those kinds of things, right? So it's one establishing that what am I an expert in, right? And then I think that the challenges are always trying to just understand where people lie in the organization and really I won't understand exactly how the products work and everything else for about 8 or 12 months. Does that make sense? Because I'm trying to build this community, but I'm also trying to figure out what kind of things are we trying to accomplish with community. Um, and so I've got to talk to a lot of people, and I've got to figure out one, yeah, I think support is always the easier answer, just because customers have questions about your products. But there's also kind of an ideation piece to that. Does product management want to, you know, uh, use community as ideation? There's also a, beta testing type stuff. Does product management want to test their products on current customers, through kind of this beta? You set up different communities and things like that. You know, uh, I think just understanding the technology landscape of any organization is first a challenge, right? Like Imperva had 4 Salesforce.com, so CRMs, 4 case management systems, and then when you thought about integrating into the business systems with community, it wasn't possible at the time, and so there's a lot of things to go figure out, my friend. I mean, it's very similar to any other organization. I don't really see it's all a challenge. It's not a. I mean, there's not. I think it's the same challenges, and it's all sometimes hard. You
Well,
know?
maybe I guess I'll flip it around. Like I know you'll approach it the same way, right? So there's always
Yeah.
these stages of a triage, which is stop the bleeding,
Oh, I see.
prevent the wound and prevent the accident, right? Kind of those
Yeah.
steps. And like with any job, of course, we kind of come in and we're going to assess and discuss and
Yeah.
chat and talk, right? I guess maybe because it's somewhat similar market, but slightly tangential, but it's a little bit different. So yeah, that's I think what's familiar, and then again, this is where I was kind of looking at it. It is in high tech,
Yeah.
software based. Um, it you have perhaps in your now we'll call them past life at Imperva very security sensitive
That's true.
minded individuals at the market level, and then here you have more of it's
Data
and if I
focused.
understand correctly, it's I forget the acronym. It's
MDM, Master Data Management.
yeah, EDM, E something DM, right? I forget what the
No, this is MDM.
MDM. Okay, okay, well, yeah, I thought it was enterprise. Well, anyway,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep.
uh, uh, I I can't say it's a new market space because it's always been around for a while, but I think like Forrester and Gartner started calling it data management or EDM or MDM probably in the past 8 years, 8 9 years maybe that's probably what it is, and it's a very broad market space. So I would just maybe in my head, just without even looking at it, would be around uh, you know you have a very niche market in security.
Yeah.
Here you might have more of a broader market
Mm.
on the
You mean
DM
like
side.
customers and things like that, or
Yeah, different types of customers, different needs. It was, and again, I'm now pontificating, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed again, I'm looking at security as being like very, very specific, right? Very niche.
yeah,
These are very, they were very concerned about very specific things. We would talk about it, right? The types of security protocols, the way, enterprise level. I'm just thinking that maybe
yeah,
part of the interesting challenge is going to be how do you broaden a portfolio across a
yeah?
broad audience?
It's interesting. So there's a lot of things to say on that. So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. One, it's different because the way that Imperva approaches customers is it's not by the e-commerce market or financial market or whatever. They don't write, specific blogs. They don't do specific kind of markets. Does that make sense? They're just kind of now and your audience really is secure is the chief security officer on down into his or her organization. So that's your market. As in the MDM market is funny because when I worked at Forrester Research,
Mhm.
um, I worked with the leaders called enterprise architects that were VPs or whatever
Yeah.
of an
Funny,
enterprise
funny for
architecture
full circle, eh?
program, yeah, or practice. So it is interesting. Those are the guys, mostly guys, sometimes women, um,
Yeah.
but that were so they're very technical, but they understand the landscape of the entire technology stack within an organization. And that
Mm.
includes like it could include like a VP of e-commerce and things like that. This person really is
Mm.
talking to a lot of different people within the organization to understand what technologies they have to bring in. That. With that said, um, I'm not saying that there's not others that look at it, that don't look at MDO. I'm sure there is, but I know for a fact that a big audience will be those enterprise architects, right? That look at those
No, I agree.
solutions,
Yeah,
want to bring in
100% agree.
data directly from these disparate systems to, maybe I don't know if it's dashboards or whatever. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Reltio's products and how to use them
Oops,
yet,
sorry.
but
Yep.
that's fine. I'm excited to kind of dive in. But they do kind of at the moment. I think this is going to change. But they do look at specific segments of companies like e-commerce and things like
Mm.
that, right?
Mm.
So, um, but from my understanding, there could be some changes in how they might do that. Um, I mean, this new CEO that they have, he's new. The CEO didn't step down; he's now the CTO. So a lot of times
Roger, Roger. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
when these companies do that and they want to go into hyper growth, they'll hire somebody like Chris Hyland to now run
They
that
will.
types of
Yeah,
business.
exactly correct.
And the person that was the co-founder or the founder of the company doesn't step down, but is now like a CTO and is kind of like the head of and the face of still the company in ways, and does a lot of speaking engagements and press type stuff. Um, and but Chris will kind of make the big decisions. I think is how that works. I think they're both on
Hmm.
the board and things like that. But um, so, anyways, there's going to be a lot of cool changes. The company is in hyper growth. The nice thing is I'm going to be on ground zero, not zero, but at this kind of level of 300 people on to I think they want to hire like close to 1,000 people in three
Sorry about that.
years.
Uh-huh.
So, anyways, um, so there's so the way I see it is a little different, but from a community standpoint, my thought is that you know most likely we will kind of solve the problem of support, you know, uh, and then have those type of communities or community that focuses on those issues, not specific to any, um, you know, e-commerce or any kind of segment of uh, types of companies. But over time, I and this is exactly what I wanted to do at Aperva, was kind of look at kind of this peer-to-peer networking to where maybe there are segments of these small groups that you can break out over time to really start this peer-to-peer networking. Because
Yeah, we were kind of entering that in our discussions around
yeah,
user groups, right?
that's right.
Uh, and who knows how you'll evolve. And that's what's fun. Kind of in thinking about your adventure and every adventure I have done myself, right? The fun part uh, is digging in, is to understand. And I love piecing together a large corporate environment to understand how community can accelerate a company's growth, because it can. It
Yeah,
can drive uh, it can drive loyalty to a fascinating level, and getting those numbers set up and doing how that works and showing it and getting people to proof point it. And once they see that feedback from customers, immediately you mean like, oh my god, I can't believe I affected someone's life today, and it's great. It's good in a
yeah,
good way. It becomes very addicting, right? So it's kind of fun. That's the fun part.
yeah. It's exciting. It's also slightly sad to kind of leave the company I was at. I mean, I remember the same
That's a good point.
feeling, probably
Yeah.
not as much, but I had that same feeling whenever I left Rexel. I thought, damn, what am I going to do next? And or how am I going to do this alone? And all the relationships that you build. Now, relationships come and go at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Some of those stick, like our relationship really is stick,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we've worked at that, to
Yeah.
really make it happen. And so you really have to put a lot of effort into keeping these things. Um, and so the what I love about the last two jobs I've had is the people, and at the end of the day, like when you look at Rexel, I get to meet people like you and Devashish and Srini and Ujwal and lots of people,
Yeah.
and look super smart at what they do, and that was
Mhm.
cool because they were specific experts. But then even to broaden that, I get to learn the culture a lot of in France and Germany and Sweden and others,
Mhm.
and because we get to go out there and build relationships there, they get to come out to Dallas,
Mhm.
and you get to spend time with them, eat dinner, and you know drink beers and those kinds of things. That was a lot of fun, and it really broadened my horizons in a lot of ways and made me better as a person to really get to build relationships with those. And then I even get to go to Imperva, and I get to go travel all over the world. And it was going to happen again this year. Besides COVID, kind of stopped that, but
Until yeah, COVID.
it's the same thing. The relationships, the beers, all those things. It was so awesome. So now I understand the culture more in Israel, and uh, Australia and some other places, Belfast, I get to go there, but I also get to know those people. And it was, at the end of the day, man, people really want to help. You just have to build relationships with them. So
Yeah, they're not going to do it for somebody who they just see on an email. They don't know you. Once you make a personal
right,
connection, it's a lot harder for one to say no.
yeah.
Unless, of course, you're just being a dick. Then I'm like, I'll say no 5, 10 times in your face without a problem.
Yeah, or they just ignore
you
the
know,
email. I don't know who this is, or you know what I mean. It's just you got to get out there.
you said something we could probably close on that I found very, and I agree with you. And it's almost like a proxy to life because I think about it myself, even in my personal life, right? Which is you mentioned when you left Rexel, you felt bad, but you also felt a little, I would say the word, a little fearful about can I do this myself? Can I do this element, right?
Yep.
But now that you were in that uncomfortable space, made it successful, now you probably have a level of confidence that you can do it. And not only do it, but maybe take what you've learned and make it better, right? Kind of like hindsight 2020 discussions, right? And I've had the same experience with every interaction. And maybe as a kind of closing thought is this, like you have to make yourself uncomfortable. I had a mentor of mine when I was at Texas Instruments years ago saying that once you've reached a point in your career, in your job, where you're comfortable, it's time to move. And I agree. I think that's fair. It means if you're so comfortable doing what you're doing, then you're not learning, you're not pushing, and you do that very well. So I know you'll do great.
No, I agree, man. That's great. I,
Yeah.
I can't say anything better than that. So
Yeah. Well, with that, sir, I say congratulations, and we'll talk more, of course, about this
of
wonderful adventure.
course.
But for that, thank you for another episode of Peers Over Beers. My name is Michael Sandval.
And I'm Chris Detzel.
All right. Talk to you later, Chris. Bye.
All right.